morning, friends. Good morning, friends. Good morning. So good to see you. Happy Friday. It's a beautiful day. Put my glasses on for a moment here. Sorry. We could begin our time together with some shared moments of silence and stillness. Thank you. Welcome to this year's Greenberg Peace Lecture. Evan James Greenberg was class of '91 at AFS, and this is a place where he really flourished and had a deep affinity for our friends' values, particularly for peaceful resolution of conflict. And he went on to become a presidential scholar at American University and passed away far too young in his senior year at American from a brain tumor. His family established this lecture series in 1997 in his memory and in order to enrich our school community as they have for decades now. I'm very pleased to tell you that Evan's mother Maxine and his brother and sister are here, so could we please welcome them and thank you. So today's lecturer is Alyssa Reynoso Morris. Alyssa Reynoso Morris founded and serves as CEO of Schools for Sustainability Incorporated, S4S, an idea she conceptualized about building an environmentally sustainable school at the age of 15. Alyssa envisioned a world where each human being was empowered through their education while fostering environmental stewardship. Her personal experience overcoming poverty and her time abroad clarified her vision. She interned for a microfinance organization working to break the poverty cycle in the slums of India, taught English at an orphanage in Tanzania, and facilitated the establishment of the Women's Witness Protection Program for the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. She earned her BA in political science and graduated magna cum laude from Arcadia with honors. As the CEO of S4S, she has assembled a team of 70 volunteers that fundraised, wrote curriculum, built a water purification system, and constructed an aquaponic unit producing both fish and crops in a closed-loop system without waste in the Monte Plata region of the Dominican Republic. Currently, Alyssa wears many hats. She's a children's book writer, a speaker, a wife and a mom, and also, I just learned this, she is chief of staff for State Representative Jared Solomon in the Northeast. Jared is class of '97 AFS, so just one more really nice connection to our community. Please welcome Alyssa Reynoso Morris.
Thank you for such a warm welcome. I had a wonderful tour with Sloan. Thank you so much for inviting me here. This is a beautiful campus. It's a wonderful school, and each and every one of you are just really lucky to be here, but I'm even luckier to be here with all of you. So again, my name is Alyssa. Thank you so much for having me, and I wear many, many hats. But I think one of my favorite hats is an educator. My mom is a teacher. She teaches in Washington Heights. Anyone been to Washington Heights? Cool, cool. Anyone watch the movie by Lin-Manuel? Yeah, okay, I dig it. Cool, cool. Anyone got to see it on Broadway? Okay, I see a couple hands. I'm gonna take off my mask. Sorry, guys. So as I mentioned, my mom is a teacher in Washington Heights, and through her, I learned the power of education and how important school and a school community is. But I didn't want to be a teacher because I cared about a lot of things. How many of us care about too many things? I love it. I have some good news for you. You don't have to pick one thing, which is something that I wish people had told me when I was your age. I thought I had to pick just one thing and be really, really good at that one thing. And then I realized, just like all of us are connected, everything we care about is connected. And there are ways that we can integrate all of those things that we care about. Does that make sense to everyone? Cool, cool, all right. So just a quick overview of what I'll be talking about. I'm going to introduce myself, which I kind of already did, but I'll give you a little more details. Then we're going to define servant leadership and sustainability. After that, we're going to talk about school sustainability, which is the nonprofit that I had started, and going to do an interactive activity in which we can all identify how we can make the world a better place. Sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. So just a little more about myself. I am a wife, a mother, an activist, a writer, and I share that because it's all integrated. As a mom, I make sure that whatever I expose my daughter to, it's changing the wiring of her brain so that she can see how special she is and how special everyone around her is and how it's her role, and she's only 2, how it's her role in the world to make it better, even in small ways. Just yesterday, for example, I told Sloan this. We have a slide out front of our house. She loves playing on her slide. And as she's on her slide, she just waves hi to everyone. And I can't tell you how many neighbors come to our house to play and read just because she's always smiling. So something as simple as a smile can really change and transform the world. And based on the tour, I mean, you're all changing the world every day just by being here, because so many of you were smiling, the teachers, the staff, the students. So I'm happy to be here. I love the energy, and we're gonna start getting a little bit more interactive. You guys ready?
Yes.
Awesome. So has anyone heard the term servant leadership before? Cool, raise those hands a little higher so I can see. Awesome. Okay, does anyone feel comfortable sharing what they know about servant leadership? If you do, you can stand and share what you know. Come on, don't be shy. All right, okay, I'll warm you guys up. So, servant leadership. It's a combination of 2 words, right? Servant, service. What comes to mind when you think of service? Anyone, just shout it out. I'm giving you permission to talk out of line.
Helping others.
Good, helping others. Anything else?
Devoting your time.
Devoting your time, love it, okay? Anything else come to mind when you think of service?
Humility. Humility.
Caring, humility?
Putting someone before yourself.
Putting someone before yourself, I love that. And how do you feel when you're in service to others?
Good.
Right, you feel good because you're helping others, you feel happy. Awesome. All right, now we're gonna move on to the other word, leadership. I'm sure we've all heard that word before. Anyone feel brave enough to define it? What comes to mind? What are some qualities and characteristics when you think of leadership?
Stewardship.
Stewardship, love that. Anyone else? Think about a group project. Maybe someone... Confidence, yeah, leaders tend to be confident, absolutely. Taking charge, yeah, cool. We're gonna talk about that, taking charge and how it looks.
Organizing.
Organizational skills are super important to be a good and effective leader, definitely. Problem solving, yes. That's a key one. I didn't put it up there, but I should. You should be up here. So, to kind of sum it up so that we're all kind of on the same page and have a framework that we can work in. Servant leadership is a leadership style. It's a philosophy. And some of the key components of servant leadership are that we develop a symbiotic relationship with our team. I'm sure we probably learned about symbiotic relationships in biology, right? Show of hands. Cool. Mutually beneficial relationships, right? So that's at the core of servant leadership. In addition to that, a good servant leader wants to promote innovation, wants to promote creative thinking, thinking outside of the box, right? Because that's when we can problem solve effectively, right? Another is to empower your team. Oftentimes, leaders get the reputation of being leaders because they take charge. But sometimes, a more effective leadership style is when you empower others and you motivate others to take charge themselves, and you grow them as leaders. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Has anyone had someone in their life that has motivated them to think about something differently and to take on a leadership role that they maybe didn't before? So many hands. I love that. I love that. So you've all had a servant leader in your life, which is super important, that they model that behavior so that you know how to mimic it and put that out into the world generation after generation. A couple other characteristics that a good servant leader has is that they are empathetic. Have we come across that word before?
Yes.
Good, good. Awesome. Positive attitude, active listener, that's super important. Observant. A good leader sometimes knows when someone on their team is having a rough day and they take the time to acknowledge that member and say, hey, everything okay? How can I help you? Right? And most importantly, they're committed to the growth of their team and of others. And if each and every one of us takes the time to commit to the growth of someone else, just think about how much better this world would be. Just take a second and think about that. Okay, sustainability. Anyone come across this word before? I figured you guys might, based on your classroom. Anyone feel brave enough to define it? Don't worry. There are a lot of definitions to sustainability, so we're going to talk it out, because there isn't just one definition for it. But what are some things that you think about when people talk about environmental sustainability? Shout it out. Come again? Reusing, very good, very good. Can you give me an example? Upcycling clothing, love that, yes. Thrift stores are awesome, love it. Anyone else? Self-reliant. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Like being able to grow your own food, I guess, and not have to rely on someone else to buy it for you.
Love that. Growing your own food, sourcing food locally. That's awesome. Yes, I saw your garden. It's awesome. Made me really excited. Sustainable energy. You guys basically wrote my presentation. I mean, you guys are awesome. What are some forms of sustainable energy?
Biomass energy.
Biomass, cool. What's that?
It's like plant, but it's like not very good for daily consumption.
Right, so we're gonna talk about that. So I like where your head's at. Biomass, so using natural, like plant products and turning it into energy, usually heat energy. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
Solar and like I forget what it's called, but hydro.
Yes, so solar power, water power, yep. Wind power, yep, wind turbines. You guys know all this stuff. This is great, your teachers are killing it. Someone else shouted something. Geothermal, yes, cool. Have you ever been to Iceland? You should. Add it to your bucket list, tell your parents. They got the geothermal stuff situated. All right, so you guys basically nailed it. So we want to reduce our carbon emissions. How do we do that? Renewable energy sources, as was mentioned. Waste products. We want to decrease that as well. We don't want them ending up in landfills and polluting our environment, right? And at the same time, while we're reducing pollution, we want to preserve our wildlife, our forests, our environment, right? Which is basically what you guys said. But this is actually my favorite definition of sustainability. And it is when you live in a way so that all living things and all creatures can continue to thrive for the next 7 generations. So it's making decisions so that not only your well-being, but the well-being for the next 7 generations are fostered. And that has roots to indigenous wisdom. Anyone heard of permaculture before? Cool, so that's where that comes from. And I think it's a wonderful, holistic way of thinking about our role in society and how society should be structured. So we can talk about permaculture. We can geek out about that during lunch. Okay. So, as I mentioned before, I was that weird kid who cared about everything and couldn't pick just one thing, and I was really conflicted because I felt like I didn't have a place in the world. Like, what am I gonna do when I grow up, right? Because that's the question every adult likes to ask you, and I would just roll my eyes, like, can I be like a doctor / lawyer / engineer / teacher? Can I just like do it all? And I had a really hard time picking one thing. But I had a wonderful mentor that asked me this question up here, which is, what is it that we need in order to live? So I'm putting it out to you guys. You can shout it out.
Each other.
Water, each other, food, air, right? Oxygen, love. Yeah, we totally need love. Absolutely. Anything else? Sunlight, right? Shelter, that's a good one, yep. All right, so sounds like we all have a good idea of this. So we mentioned water. We're gonna focus on water a little bit. What do you think water remediation means? It's a lot of things.
Trying to conserve the water you use, not waste it.
Trying to conserve the water you use, absolutely. Absolutely, that's part of it. Anything else come to mind?
Maybe like keeping water clean.
Yes, storing water, keeping it clean, maybe purifying water that was dirty originally. Not wasting unnecessary water, absolutely. Yes, sorry, that is my phone. Filtering water, I heard that. Wonderful. What else?
Making sure that everybody has access to water.
So important, yes. Making sure everyone has access. Equity is so important. And it's a focal point of sustainability, absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes, easy access, right? I agree with that. Thank you so much for highlighting that. If we have access, but you have to jump through 1,000 hoops in order to get it, it doesn't really help anyone, does it? Right? Good point. Thank you. Cool. You guys are experts. I love this. So I'm gonna highlight just a couple. This picture is a water purification system that we built in the Dominican Republic in Monte Plata. Monte Plata is about an hour away from Santo Domingo. Anyone been to the Dominican Republic? Cool. Okay, I love it. Anyone from the Dominican Republic? You're all honorary Dominicans. After this presentation, you're all honorary Dominicans. So in the Dominican Republic, particularly in the community that I was working in, had a really high Haitian and dark-skinned Dominican population. And the reason I mention that is because the Dominican Republic was one of the countries that was colonized. And because of that, it played a role in the political structure of the Dominican Republic. And oftentimes individuals of Haitian descent and those of dark-skinned Dominican descent are disproportionately disadvantaged. So that's where we talk about that easy access for everyone, right? In the Dominican Republic, because of the former president, Trujillo, who was a dictator for 30 years, there's a legacy of anti-Haitianism and anti-Blackness. So the community that I was working in was forgotten by the government, it was forgotten by political leaders, and they didn't have access to clean drinking water, which means little girls in the community had to walk for miles in order to get clean access to drinking water, which made them victims of violence. And for the few individuals that used the water that was locally available, many of them fell ill because the water was contaminated. So a lot of individuals in the community, unfortunately, lost their lives because they didn't have access to something as basic as clean drinking water. So we knew that this was where we needed to start. So we did a community assessment, we talked to everyone in the community, we found out where the local sources of water are, and we figured out the best place to build a water purification system is right next to the church, because that's where everyone would convene, and it would be an easy access point for everyone in the community. And then after that, we built a pipe system so that it was available at all the other major gathering points in the community. I share that because, at least for me, sometimes even I forget how easy it is to turn on the tap and to have access to clean drinking water. And even in our own country, we have areas that don't have access to clean drinking water. Still to this day, Flint, Michigan. And as a developed country, as we like to label ourselves, it's inexcusable. And it's heartbreaking because I saw these little girls, I took the trek with them and I walked with them, and they would walk 3 miles each way with a huge bucket on their head. And the fact that it would fall on the girls in the community tells you more about the problems and the inequities. So, not to be all doom and gloom, right? But that's the reality. In the majority of the world, people do not have access to clean drinking water. The majority. But individuals that have engineering skills, science skills, can figure out ways to address these problems. And there are lots of organizations out there that are doing it effectively. So there is hope, right? We can build low-cost wells in communities where it's harder to find parts to have more intricate water purification systems that tap into the aquifer. We can build water purification systems, and there's different levels of them. Some of them can be really technical, some can be really simple. And then also water catchment. A lot of countries all over the world that have abandoned some of their indigenous ways. And I found it really interesting because if you store water in traditional adobe, clay, catchment systems, it actually helps to purify the water. But with the mass production of plastic, not everyone, but a lot of people have shifted over to plastic. So it's really important that as we figure out ways to leverage technology, that we continue to remember some of the indigenous ways and some of those teachings, and we don't forget that and bring them together. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Next up. Has anyone heard of the eco machine before? Cool. Oh, I see a hand. I see a hand. I wanted to teach you guys at least one new thing. So the eco machine is built in a campus called the Omega Center in upstate New York. And it is so freaking cool. If I can encourage a field trip anywhere, teachers take note. Go to the Omega Center, they do wonderful tours. The campus is very reminiscent of Abington, so I think you guys would enjoy it. So the eco machine, if you look at the picture, you can see plants, see tanks, and basically what it is it uses biomimicry. Has anyone heard of the word biomimicry before? Cool, what does it mean?
It mimics the conditions of the real world in science lab.
Love it, yes. So it mimics conditions in nature. In a lab, in a building like the Omega Center, anywhere. So you can do it anywhere, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a lab. But it mimics nature. And it allows us to see how nature, in a lot of ways, has the answers. It gives us an opportunity to study it more closely so that we can learn from nature. So what it does, it's a mini ecosystem, and it purifies drinking water using bacteria, algae, plants, and the water is then funneled into the aquifer and pumped up by a well that everyone uses. It's really freaking cool. And the best part is, 0 chemicals, 0 waste. Because the plants are then composted. So everything is used, everything is cyclical, there's no waste. And I use this as an example of water remediation because it's a great way to produce clean drinking water without the use of any chemicals. So another part that we focused on, in addition to building water purification systems, was organic food production. What comes to mind when you think of food production? Farming, yeah, farming. Cattle, that is important. Crops, cool, yes, definitely. Does this picture look familiar to anyone? Do you know what that is? Corn, right. So in most agricultural settings, they are monoculture. So we produce a lot of corn, we produce a lot of soy, we produce a lot of wheat. But when you produce the same crop over and over again, what are you doing to the soil? Taking all the nutrients out, right? You're depleting the soil. Good. So how is that different from organic food production?
Sometimes in organic food production, it really depends on the company because sometimes they put false labels on it. I think organic food productions, they try to not do monoculture. They try to grow a diverse range of crops. Right. So not monoculture. What is the opposite of monoculture?
Oh. Biodiversity?
Biodiversity, yes, absolutely. So you want to have different crops that form symbiotic relationships with each other, that interact with each other in ways that revitalize the soil. Awesome, right? Makes sense? But sometimes we get it wrong, right? Because it's harder to do that, to learn all of the properties of each and every plant, to see how they work together, to see what each plant takes out of the soil, which ones are revitalized. So it does take time to learn these things, but they're super important for our survival because we can't live without food. And if you do it in the ways that we have been through our capitalistic agricultural society, eventually the soil is not going to be usable. Anyone heard of aquaponics before? Awesome. I'm gonna pick on you. What's aquaponics?
It's like a system they use to grow plants where you pretty much just, run water underneath them. It's like food for soil.
Yeah. Okay, you're close. That's actually hydroponics.
Oh,
You're close, yes.
So it's like plants growing with like fish. I did project for 8th grade where we had a fish tank. And then we had like a lot of plants growing in water. So it's like animals and plants like grow with each other.
Absolutely. You nailed it, girl. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So, hand the bar. All right, so aquaponics is the marriage of hydroponics, so growing plants without the presence of soil, and also aquaculture, which is the cultivation of fish. So it's a closed loop system in which the fish provide nutrients for the plants without the need of soil, and the fish provide nutrients for the plants, and the plants clean the fish tank. So it's super awesome. Another example similar to the Eco Machine where there is no waste. And this is the aquaponics system that I built with my team in the Dominican Republic. As you can see, the soil around is extremely depleted. The reason being they were growing cacao and coffee beans on the soil year after year after year in order for cash exports. Any questions about aquaponics? Cool. So renewable energy sources. What comes to mind when we think of renewable energy sources? We highlighted most of them already. We mentioned solar panels, we mentioned wind energy, we mentioned water energy, right? And what makes it renewable?
You don't run out of it?
Come again?
You don't run out of it?
You don't run out of it, exactly. So fossil fuels, the current sources of energy that we use and that we depend on, it has waste products, it runs out. Renewable energy doesn't. And there's a form of energy that actually does two things. It's a form of waste management, and it's also a form of energy. And that's what was mentioned in terms of biomass. So has anyone heard of anaerobic digestion? So it's just a fancy way. Anyone else before I? It's just a fancy way of saying that you take natural products, you accelerate the decomposition process without the presence of oxygen. Appropriate bacteria are cultivated, and they actually produce heat energy. And this is kind of what they look like. So this diagram right here. And it's basically the opposite of composting. Does everyone know what composting is? Raise your hand. Cool, cool. All right, I'm gonna pick on someone I haven't picked on. What's composting? Exactly. Okay, so composting, you take your apple cores, your banana peels, you take your mulch, your straw, your leaves from your backyard, and you mix them all together in order to create what the byproduct of compost. Soil, exactly, soil. Has anyone tried composting at home before? Did anyone successfully do it? Huh? Good stuff. What happens when you don't do it right? Yeah, my first 3 takes at compost at home, I got slime, and it was pretty gnarly. The main reason, because I didn't have the right ratio of 2 properties. Anyone want to venture a guess at what those are? Nitrogen, oh, sorry. Your nitrogen and carbon, your brown and your greens. I had too many green in there, not enough brown, so I got pretty stinky. And I wasn't aerating it enough. So for those of us who are not good at composting, a good alternative is something called bokashi. Has anyone heard of bokashi before? You have? That's fine. So bokashi is an alternative to composting, and the reason that it's a little different is because what you're doing in regular compost is you're waiting for healthy bacteria to take root naturally, right? You're giving nature time. With bokashi, you kind of give it a boost. You introduce microorganisms into it from the very beginning so that it accelerates the decomposition process and it kind of decreases your chances of getting slime. So that would be a cool project to do in class, make a bokashi compost. It doesn't take a lot of space, which is nice. You can do it under your sink in like a Tupperware bin container. So try bokashi. Alright, so now that I've ranted and raved about different ways to address climate change and our degrading environment, this is when we get a little bit more interactive and talk about how you can all make a difference in the world. So the 3 questions that I want you each to think about, and I'll give you a minute or 2, are: what are you good at? What do you care about? And what do you enjoy doing? So I'll give you a minute to think about it. And then I would love for a brave soul to come on stage with me, and we're gonna workshop it. So if you're feeling brave, just stand up and walk on stage. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm gonna keep my distance. I am vaccinated, but just cool. So first, your name.
My name's Ray. Oh, okay. I hate answering this question because it always feels like way too presumptuous of myself. I'm pretty good at writing, either creatively or just like analytical writing. I like theater, I'm pretty good at theater, various things. What else? I don't know. Any of my teachers want to comment on that? I don't know what I'm good at. Yeah. Communication, maybe? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what do you care about?
What do I care about?
And it's okay if you care about a lot of things.
I do care a lot. Care a lot about ethics. I'm very invested in like moral dilemmas and stuff. That's my jam. I care about third world nations and how to help develop them. Specifically, my dad did a lot of work with Haiti, so Haiti has a very like special place in my heart. I don't know. What else do I care about? God, this is a loaded question, isn't it?
I didn't warn you. I didn't warn any of you.
It's okay. Yeah, care about people, how to make people feel at home, how to make them feel connected and safe in their environments. Yeah, is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's awesome. We can
Okay.
work with that. Thank you. And then what do you enjoy doing?
Well, it's a lot of the same things I'm good at. I think that's like a little bit like selfish because it's like I'm only good at things I like doing. But I like writing, I like acting, improv specifically. You guys have heard my improv club announcements every single day and they never get any better. But anyways, I like watching television. I like Degrassi. I like Glee. Those are
I
two.
love Glee.
You love Glee?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite Glee character?
I can't pick one because they're like each a weird like facet of my personality, so I kind of love them all in different ways.
I love Quinn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Santana? Oh my god. Don't get me started. I love like analysis of media. I'm all over that sort of thing. Again, like exploring moral dilemmas and ethics are all sorts of my jam. I like public speaking.
Clearly, you have your next speaker in a couple years.
Oh my gosh. I always joked that I would have a TED Talk one day because I'm really talkative and nothing is good that I say. But anyways, yes. But thank you.
All right, so I want you to take a look really quick at the diagram.
Okay.
So we answered what you're good at, we answered what you care about, and what you enjoy doing. So where they all meet is where you need to be. And I'm glad that you mentioned that the things you enjoy doing are also things that you tend to be good at, right? You try new things, if you're not good at it, but you still care about it, you still enjoy it, still do it. I suck at rock climbing. I'm atrocious, but I still do it because it's a lot of fun, right? But because it doesn't intersect where everything does, I wouldn't start a nonprofit that focuses on rock climbing. But if someone who's really good at it and who really enjoys doing it, maybe that's something you can do. Work with inner city youth to build trust doing rock climbing, right? Just an idea. Maybe it's already out there. But it's hard to pick one thing, like I mentioned at the beginning. So what you need to think about as you go on in your life and you accumulate experiences and skills and you travel the world and you help people and you do the things that you enjoy doing, it's important for you to reflect on that daily, monthly, weekly, in order to figure out where they all meet and how it looks for you, right? Like some ideas that I have, just based on what you said, is maybe you work with an organization or you start an organization, if nothing like this exists, where you travel and, because you enjoy traveling as well, right?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, so you enjoy traveling and you do improv classes with students to build confidence.
Oh.
Right?
That'd be nice.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Right? So I want another volunteer. Thank you so much for coming, Ray. You're awesome. Finger pointing over here. Well, I'm not going to coerce you. One more volunteer. Come on down. Just come on down and grab the mic. And we're going to do the same thing. And I want each and every one of you to think about this for yourselves, right? Where do they all meet? All right, so what are you good at?
Probably, like technology stuff.
Technology stuff is super important. Yeah, I mean, I would not be able to do this presentation if it wasn't for technology, right? What else are you good at?
Not much. I do a lot of reading.
Reading is good.
My mom's an English teacher, so I'm okay at writing. And I do like crafting stuff, like making stuff, but I'm not that good at that. I really like metalworking.
Metalworking.
So I've made like a working throwing star, which is not very quick really, but we didn't have school Wednesday because 11th grade was taking the PSATs, so I spent the day making a sword.
Okay, is that something you enjoy doing?
Yeah.
Cool. What'd you make it out of?
Steel.
Steel. Nice. Maybe you can make me a sword one day.
Maybe. This is the second thing I've ever made, so.
Wow. What was the first thing you made?
The throwing star.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So based on what you enjoy doing, I think we answered what you enjoy doing, what you're good at. What do you care about?
This one is off topic to the other stuff I've said. I really care about trying to solve the opioid crisis in Philadelphia. That's what I did my Egypt project on, was I made a documentary about Kensington and the issues there.
And it's not just Kensington.
Yeah, that's like sort of one of the big areas.
Yes. I have connections in Kensington if you ever want to do some work there.
Do you know Impact Services?
Yes, I love Impact Services.
My dad is the CEO. Casey?
Look at that! I love it! Okay, we're gonna be friends. We're gonna be friends. Okay, so now that we know what you're good at, what you care about, what you enjoy doing, does anyone want to venture and make some suggestions on how they all meet? See any interconnections there? So one thing that I thought about, I'll share, but do you see any connections in the things that you just said before?
When I was little, my dad used to take me to cleanups in like McPherson Square, which is when I was really little. And I think one of the biggest things that I remember my dad was telling me about, I was like 4, and there was someone who spoke Spanish and not English, and we managed to figure out how to communicate and like clean up needles and leaves and things like that, trash. So maybe I could help make tools or make things to help people clean up and do things down in Kensington and in Philadelphia altogether.
I love that. That is excellent. Yeah, maybe ways that you can help people communicate, right? Because you figured out a way to communicate. Coming up with tools to make connection easier. And that will also help address the opioid crisis. Awesome. I think it's great. I'm so excited. All right? So thank you all so much for that. We're going to wrap up. So my last slide. Questions. Not sure why I did that. I have to exit out and come back in. Sorry, guys. But yeah, questions. Raise your hand. Shout it out, whatever. No questions.
There's a question over here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You talked about the thing, I heard aqua something with the
Aquaponics?
fish and the plants and stuff, and then you showed us a picture of one of those that you made.
Yes.
Were there fish in that thing?
Yes. So it was actually a series, good question. So there was a series of 4 different tanks. So one tank contained, because it's a larger scale tank, there are ways to do aquaponics with one tank in which the fish are beneath and then the plants are above floating. But because we needed a bigger system, we had actually a series of 3 different tanks. One tank contained the fish, another tank contained the crops, and then the 3rd tank was like a settlement tank to handle any overflow from the other tanks. It also rained a lot in the Dominican Republic, so that's why we needed that 3rd tank. We didn't want it to overflow. So you have to make little modifications based on your environment to your design, and that's what we had to do. Any other questions?
What was the process of like getting a nonprofit into like working for like what were the steps for that? I know that's something we talked about, but it seems very big and massive. Where do you start with that?
That's such a great question. Thank you so much. So how do you get involved or start a nonprofit? So I had actually worked for a lot of other nonprofits before I started my own. I also worked in the government sector, worked for the United Nations and nonprofits, both locally and also overseas. And it was through those experiences of working with other nonprofits that I learned a lot of the skills that I needed in order to start my own. And also accumulating mentors. So I had a mentor for everything. I had a mentor that taught me how to fill out all the legal paperwork to get our EIN and our IRS 501c3, because I was 22 when I started it and I had no idea what the heck I was doing, right? So I had a legal mentor that was helping me with all of that admin. I had an accounting mentor that helped us make sure that we were good and that we weren't gonna get in trouble with the government, right? I had mentors that were helping me develop the curriculum. I had science mentors that were helping us design units that make sense for our local environment. So in order to start a nonprofit, it's really daunting, but there are organizations out there that do like boot camps that can help you figure out how to start a nonprofit. But before you do that, I do recommend working for other nonprofits, seeing what they're doing, making those kinds of connections, and meeting people that care about the same thing that you do, because you're going to have to lean on other people's expertise. Does that answer your question? All right, cool. We have time for one more? No? Okay. Ooh, sorry, can I just one? Sorry, yeah.
So Alyssa, I'm Evan's brother, and I want to thank you for being here, because this is a very important audience, because it's the future of the world.
Yes.
So, my mom would disagree with my saying this, but my little brother Evan would have reviled the leadership of 45 and the toxic environment that you propagated. So given the fact that we live in such tumultuous times, how do you promote this idea of sustainability when we have people in the world that don't believe in global warming, that don't believe in facts? How do you push the message?
That's a great question. So how do you push the message of sustainability when there's so many people out there that don't even believe climate change exists, right? So I don't have an elegant answer for you, but what I will say is, I come from the Dominican Republic. My grandmother had to flee the Dominican Republic because of a vicious dictator that was in power for 30 years and led something called the Parsley Massacre. My grandmother, the only reason she survived is because she hid in the forests and was able to move to Puerto Rico. But I have family members that were actually killed during the Parsley Massacre. And I would often ask her, how do you move on? How do you keep doing the work that you do, and how do you remain hopeful? And the truth is, there's always going to be opposition. Now, I think we've made a lot of progress in certain areas. We believe that, racism exists. But once upon a time, we didn't even think that that did. And there's still some people that negate it. Similar evolutionary path that an idea like sustainability has to take. There's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people that don't believe what you believe in, but you have to keep pushing. Find like-minded people and talk to people that don't believe in it either and see if there's a common shared humanity that you have and weigh little areas that you can agree on so that little by little, their perspective can shift and tilt.
Thank you so much.